Starting off at number 10 now, we have the serial killer. Yes, we are starting off with a very intense one right away. This one comes from Reddit user Archimedes, who said, "We had a serial killer in South Carolina a couple of years ago. No one knew what he looked like yet, but he had already killed 3 people at this point. Well, my granny has lived alone since my granddad passed about 15 years ago. She lived at the end of a long dirt road with about 10 other families, but the closest one was about a quarter of a mile up the road. One afternoon, some random guy comes knocking on the front door of her house. My granny is a practical woman. She has never been to school because she grew up on a farm and was expected to pull her weight, but she is a smart woman. She goes to her glass front door but doesn't open it. The 40-ish-year-old man is there asking if he can use a phone since his car broke down. Granny doesn't like the look of this guy. He doesn't live here. If he doesn't live here, there is no reason for him to be on this road, and if he was visiting someone, their house or anyone else's house would have been closer since she lives on a dead end. Anyway, she tells him that no, he can't use the phone and he needs to leave. She backs up and picks up my granddad's 410 as she goes. Once he sees the shotgun, he hightails it out of there. About a week later, the cops finally catch the serial killer, and lo and behold, it isn't the same damn man. Next up at number 9 now, we have the tornado. This is a short one that came from Reddit user Telegraph Kiss. They said, "I worked at a hospital PRN and frequently picked up extra shifts. I worked overnights and had asked the supervisor to go ahead and put me down to work the next night. Well, as the night went on, I just felt awful, like completely doomed. I had never wanted so badly to be home. I lived an hour away from my job. So by the morning, I called the supervisor and asked her to remove me from the schedule. So I went home feeling unexplainably scared. By the time I woke up, I was getting calls that an EF5 tornado had hit the town I worked in and the hospital I worked at. I found that one really interesting. They say that animals can sense impending natural disasters. Do you think humans can sort of tap into that ability as well?" Moving on to number 8 now, we have helping a friend. This one came from Reddit user Calamity H Jane. Their story sounds like it's come straight out of a gangster movie. Now that might sound cool, but how would you like to be in this situation? They said, "A few years ago, about 1 AM on a Sunday morning, I had to take my dog out before bed. I lived in a rough neighborhood and I am a female, so I usually have my guard up regardless of the time. Before I left the apartment building, my gut told me something was up. The street was completely void of traffic and people, except for a van parked out to the side of the road. Outside of it were 3 people who I quickly identified as male. Right away, my reaction was to keep my head low, put my jacket hood up and not bring attention to myself. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see they were struggling. On closer inspection, I see 2 of the men are holding up the other man between them. I make the assumption that they are just headed home after a night of heavy partying and they are just helping their friend get sick or something. I am telling myself this to ease my fears. Then they notice me and they stop everything and freeze. I thought this was odd and not good, so I dragged my dog straight back to the building. I don't even know if he got the chance to pee that night. I go to bed thinking nothing more of it, until it's time to take the dog out again in the morning. There was a notice in the elevator asking for witnesses as to exactly what I saw that evening because a dead body had been found. So this wasn't a friend of theirs after all, they were ditching a body. It still upsets me to this day and I'll never ignore my intuition again. Next up at number 7 now, we have Katrina. This one came from Chanel number 5 on Reddit. This is a story that is very personal to them, but people all over the world will know what the event they're talking about is. They said, "I've lived in South Louisiana my entire life, about an hour south of New Orleans. In July 2005, I was only 11 years old, I kept having this reoccurring nightmare of me lying in my backyard, staring at the sky, and suddenly a large brown wave of water, probably 30 feet high, came up and washed my entire neighborhood away. It would always end right after the wave crashed and I would wake up. Then Hurricane Katrina hit a month later. My hometown was out of power for 2 weeks, but thankfully no flooding. But then I had the same dream after Katrina hit, except I saw the aftermath. I kept seeing dead animals floating past me as I tried to swim to my house. When I woke up, I had this horrible feeling that something horrible was going to happen to us. Hurricane Rita was making landfall and we were waiting it out at my house. I kept telling my mom that I wanted to go to my aunt's house, which was in the parish north of us. She said no and told me to go back to sleep. About an hour later, the levees in my town broke and our entire town had an hour to evacuate. Most of our parish was under 6 feet of water. I lost 2 classmates and 6 family members. When we came back about a week later, everything was coated in mud. There were dozens of dead animals all over the road. Most of us were homeless for years after, but at least we were alive. So now when I tell my mom something is up, she listens. Next up at number 6 now we have 9/10. For those of you that are old enough to remember 9/11, it was a day many people will never forget. But how many people remember the day before? I guess that would be called 9/10. One Reddit user does, and here is why. They said, "True story, I was a freshman in high school when 9/11 happened and was kind of a worrywart. I'd always watch the news and read the newspapers and had a solid understanding of who Bin Laden was and what his goal was. I remember on 9/10 around 11 AM I got a really bad feeling in my mind and went to the nurse's office. I called my mom and told her I wasn't feeling well and needed to get sent home from school. She was busy working and couldn't come get me, but said she would ask my grandfather if he could. He agreed and showed up within 30 minutes. When I got into his car, he looked at me and said, 'You look fine.' We talked for a good portion of the ride home, and at some point I remember saying to him I thought tomorrow was going to be the day the world ended. I believed wholeheartedly we were going to be attacked on a massive scale. I'm talking nukes and all of that. Obviously it wasn't that drastic, but still the next day was 9/11, and I'll never forget the feeling in my stomach during 3rd period when my principal pulled my teacher from the classroom and she came back in and turned the TV on to see the first tower smoking. Haunting. Moving on to number 5 now, we have The Snatcher. This one comes from Reddit user Apple Bliss. Great name. They share a story that is every parent's worst nightmare, but luckily kids can sometimes have a strange intuition. Apple Bliss said, "I think a gut feeling led to me not being kidnapped. I was maybe 9 at the time. I was in a department store wandering on my own when all of a sudden the most terrible gut-wrenching feeling came over me. I don't know how, but I knew I had to get back to my mom. I ran to the aisle she was in. A man hurriedly followed me into the aisle. When he saw I was with my mother, he stood there for a few seconds and stared at me before walking away. I will never forget that feeling or his terrifying face." Moving on to number 4 now, we have The Warning. This one came from Reddit user Belosi Dapper. I think this one would be scary just by itself, but the gut feeling makes it even better. They said, "When I was about 12 years old, I had a nightmare one night that I could see my identical twin sister standing outside of the porch, waving her arms at me as if to dissuade me from coming outside. She looked dead and was lit up by this eerie green light. It was so scary that I can still see it vividly in my mind today. When I woke up, my heart was thudding in my chest. Normally when I had a nightmare, and I often did as a kid, I would go wake up my stepmom who would take me downstairs and make me some cocoa, and we would sit at the kitchen table and talk about it until I felt better. That night, for some reason, I stayed put in my bed and couldn't bring myself to wake her up. The next morning we were awoken to shouting downstairs. A man who was drunk or stoned or something had broken into our back porch. The porch connected to the kitchen where I would have been with my stepmom. He stripped down naked inside the porch, messed with some of my dad's tools, and then at daybreak had gone outside when he heard our neighbor lady hauling her trash to the curb. She thought it was my father and had called out to him, at which point he'd gone after her. Police were called and he was taken away. There were all kinds of hunting supplies, tools on that back porch, including a hatchet. I shudder to think what would have happened if we'd wandered downstairs in our nightgowns and he'd been just on the other side of a pane of glass. Thanks sis." Next up at number 3 now, we have Hanging Knives. This one comes from Reddit user Deacon Nunu, who said he used to work as a security guard at a dormitory that used to be an old hotel. He prided himself on going down every dark hallway alone and leaving no stone unturned. He said, "One night I got to the double doors that went to a particularly dark hallway leading to the back entrance to the kitchen and I froze. No, I said to myself, I'm not going down there tonight." This was extremely out of character for me. I had no idea what would cause me to all of a sudden have so strong an urge to stay out of there, but it was like really strong, so I went with my gut. I was kind of embarrassed about it and didn't tell anyone. That night, At that exact same time, there was a strung out addict robbing the kitchen, and there were really sharp, gigantic cheese knives hanging all over the place, just in case he didn't have his own weapon. I'm pretty sure he would have attacked me as the only witness had I gone down there that night. Who knows who would have come out on top, but I like to think that something saved me that night. But if it was my subconscious, how did it assess that there was someone down there before I even opened up the doors? Moving on to number 2 now, we have the detector. This one comes from Roscoe Cracks Corn, and it's a reminder that you should always check your smoke detector. Seriously, like after this video, go and check yours, or ask your parents to. This story is a good reminder why. They said, I was driving home from work one afternoon and was troubled by the thought it would be horrible if I turned the corner and found my house was on fire. I got home and my house was fine, but that afternoon I thought I need to check the smoke detector. I'd moved in a year and a half before and hadn't ever checked the smoke detector. I bought a couple of batteries a few days later with the intention of putting them in, but noticed the detector looked different than the usual battery operated ones I was accustomed to seeing. I didn't get around to actually checking it though. I mentioned it to my friend who said he'd get a ladder and help me check it. We didn't get round to that either. A few days later, I was awakened by my smoke detector at 4 AM. My house was burning. I got my kids out and my parrot with only my bathrobe on. It turned out that my smoke detector was hardwired. I'm alive only because of that. It was arson as well. No one was ever arrested. And finally, number 1 now, we have name and birthday. I had to put this story at the number 1 spot because it's scary, but also I have so much respect for the storyteller and their friend. You're about to see why. Their Reddit username is gmoney5786. They said, when I was in university, I was walking home from the bars in the Bywood Market in Ottawa with my roommate at the time. It was about 2:30 AM and we were looking forward to getting home and ordering some pizza when we came across 2 guys and a very drunk girl. Initially, we didn't think anything about it because it was a pretty common sight on a Friday, but as we walked behind them for a few minutes, we noticed how out of it she was. One of the guys was essentially carrying her, and her clutch bag was loosely dangling from her limp wrist. Our street came up, but instead of turning down it, we decided to see what was going on. The guys explained that she was one of their girlfriends and had too much to drink, so they were taking her home. We asked them a few more questions: what bar they were at, where she lived, if she was an Ottawa University student, etc. They gave pretty convincing answers, but all seemed very uncomfortable and wanted us to go away. During the conversation, the guy holding his girlfriend shifted her position to get a better grip, which caused her arm to dangle down and drop her clutch. Before they could move, my roommate grabbed the clutch and took her ID. My roommate then asked if they knew her first and last name along with her birthday. This is where things changed. The other guy got really aggressive and confrontational, while the other went silent. They didn't know her name or her birthday. I then pulled out my phone and called the police. The guy dropped her and they took off running. We waited with her for about 10 minutes until the police and EMS got there. We gave a statement but did not have much to go on other than their descriptions. Police told us they suspected she had been dosed and that she was lucky we happened to be walking behind her. Pretty scary stuff.
Coming in at number 10, we have the ending. The Randonauting people want to bring another level of enjoyment to the Randonauting experience, so they do this by telling their users to think of an intention before they go on their little trip. It's something that gives the adventure a little more meaning, and sometimes people get what they were looking for in the strangest ways. Redditor Drake Berserker went out randonauting and he stated that he wanted to find an ending. That is something very vague, but the universe knew how to take this information and give him exactly what he was looking for. There is a very nebulous way you could understand the meaning of an ending, but this is the most blunt rendition of the word. Ending up in a cemetery with a freshly dug grave is a very creepy way for the app to show you an ending. Now, is this a premonition from the universe showing you what you need to see, or are the phones just listening to us and an AI is interpreting what you're saying and then sending you in the right direction? Coming in at number 9, we have a ritual site. I mean, I can't confirm that this is some sort of ritual site, but I'll let you guys get a peek at what I'm talking about, and then we can try to break it down together.
I don't know what it is. If you know what it is or what it means, comment down below. I don't know if it's like witchcraft or something. I'm scared.
So you get what I mean. It looks like some sort of site where there was some sort of strange ritual that was taking place. Like there's a whole circle of sticks going on, and then there's a circle at the center of the whole thing. There's also some weird markings in the grass that seem like they're shaped like a person. If anyone out there knows what these symbols mean, please let me know in the comments below. Coming in at number 8, we have consider yourself lucky. I have no idea why someone would go out randonauting and ask for something negative. My intention would always be like money or the answer to my problems or someone telling me I look handsome. I really like that. I would always want things to make my day better, but some people out there love the taste of danger, and I guess they want to have their limbs slowly removed by a psychopath. Now this one is not spooky because of what the person saw, but it's because of what happened. The Redditor FlySensa02 went out randonauting, and their intention was to find something evil. Why would you ever want to find that? Well, when they got out of their house, they went into their car only to find this. If there has ever been a sign from the universe telling you that you are dumb and you should stay home, it's that. The evil that you were looking for. Trust me, you don't want to find it. You're better off chilling and just take a breather. Please. Coming in at number 7, we have metaphorically scary. A scary encounter can be a lot of things. It can be someone chasing you down the street with a knife trying to steal your organs to make a cannibal stew. Or it can be reality slapping you in the face and forcing you to deal with the world around you. This randonauting encounter was the latter. Someone went out into the world with the intention of finding truth, and this is what they ran into. Okay, that is very dark. It's an American flag over a crumbling foundation and some random trash that has been thrown about. With everything that has been going on in the US, with the constant chaos that has been sweeping all over the news, whether it's secret police being sent into Portland to arrest protesters and taking them to unknown locations, or the coronavirus reaching numbers of all-time highs day after day, or the president doing a bean shoot in the midst of the insanity, things can feel a little hopeless at times. Coming in at number 6, we have Come Inside. The next point was a story I snagged off of Reddit. Our writer says they were randonauting in Montana and it led them into a forest. It was almost sundown, so they wanted to make this as quick as possible. Nothing like following your phone into the woods to try and find a random location you've never been to before, right before the sun goes down. It seems like many safe decisions were made that day. Well, they continued on into the woods until they came onto a path. There were some signs along the path directing them down the right direction. This seemed a little bit comforting because at least it showed that some people had been here before. Well, when they eventually got to the end of the path, they found a run-down cabin that had a large sign on it that read, "Come inside." Yeah, that's gonna be a no for me, dog. Well, our Redditor took this as a sign that they should turn around and never come back, and that's exactly what they did. The sign was probably nothing, but it could have been the laziest murder trap ever built. Coming in at number 5, we have watch out when you're in the woods. So it seems that scary murder traps aren't the only thing that are going to be waiting for you when you walk into the woods. A randonauting warning article told of some pretty horrific encounters that kids had while walking through the woods, something that's a little more threatening than an ominous sign trying to scare teens. But what about a bear encounter? Yes, apparently this happens quite often. I mean, sometimes they can be harmless, but still very intimidating. But if you are randonauting through the woods, you should be sure to bring stuff with you that can scare off predators, and don't be looking down at your phone constantly because you might end up someone else's snack, or just harassed like that girl went viral a few weeks ago when the black bear was just like poking at her. That was so freaky. Coming in at number 4, we have Don't Go Inside. Redditor YoYuke696969 decided that they wanted to have a spooky adventure, and the intention that they put onto the world was that they wanted to see something scary. Well, be careful what you wish for, kids, because sometimes you're going to get slapped right in the face. Well, metaphorically speaking, a Redditor didn't actually get slapped in the face. Well, they ended up walking down a long, dirty road, and they saw this building. Yeah, you can't get much creepier than an old rundown mansion that looks like it's going to be the location for the next Resident Evil game. Oh, and if the look of the mansion wasn't creepy enough for you, here's something a little deeper to freak you out. Apparently this mansion is still used for religious retreats. What kind of religion has never been specified, but it's safe to say that this is some sort of secret cult mansion in the middle of the woods. Yeah, I think it's time to head home and pretend you never saw this place. Coming in at number 3, we have Be Careful What You Wish For. So a TikToker goes by the handle Anna49048 wanted to manifest destruction, and she ended up in the woods looking at all of this.
So today we tried randonauting. We decided to manifest destruction, and I thought it was so creepy that we came across all of this in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, that doesn't look like a good time at all. I don't know how serious this was. Like, I don't think a murderer would leave behind a sign that's labeled chop shop in the middle of the woods. That seems a little too obvious and kinda tacky. It's probably just some old props that were left out from a Halloween tour, but it's still creepy to come across all that stuff randomly. The video ends with her saying that the destruction got even worse when she went home, but that kinda sounds like something you would say because it's clickbaity and it keeps people going through your videos. But guys, you will never believe how insane the next 2 points are, so you have to stay tuned in this video to see what the top 2 are. See what I did there? I keep you guys in the video. Coming in at number 2, we have chase down. Maybe here's a good idea. Don't go randonauting at night, especially when it's going to lead you into the woods. I feel like I can have so much more fun just staying at home alone, watching Netflix and binge eating something that's made with high fructose corn syrup. Well, someone who goes by the handle Tia Langley wanted a little more thrill in her life, and her and her 3 friends drove into the woods at night, and they were quickly met with some random dudes that were not happy to see them.
Go. Go, 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 go.
So this is what went down in the clip. One dude approaches the car with a flashlight. Why was this dude in the forest? We will probably never know. He rushes the car and then 2 more guys show up and one of them punches the car. Maybe they were camping there and they were pissed off to see some people driving through their campsite, or maybe they just wanted these girls to get out of their car so they could use them as a blood sacrifice. I don't know. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have possibly a murder site. You know, I like games that make you adventure around the world in a fun way, like Pokemon Go. Let me catch a Pikachu. I don't want to catch a knife in the neck. So the TikToker Dream X Faith went out on a randonauting trip with a couple of her friends and they came across this.
Okay, so we went on a randonauting trip and we just found 2 phones that were literally like stepped on. We also found the battery. So we also just found bones and what the?
Yeah, that's gonna be a big no for me, thanks. Why was there a phone and bones out there? Who did they belong to? Was this all set up for some views? I really have no idea. But there is the possibility that they stumbled upon a place where someone got rid of a couple of bodies and all of the stuff that belonged to them. I mean, this is partly the fault of the murderer. You should do a better job at hiding bones and bodies and all that junk. God. Coming at number 10 is HR6891. Let's kick off this list with a big boy that is the closest to Earth. This thing is only about 1,000 light years away from our planet, and it was discovered this year. How do you discover a black hole? Who the hell knows? But I can tell you that it's not easy because it took us this long to find the one that is closest to us. I have to say that I'm not happy knowing that one is that close, because I know that nothing moves as fast as the speed of light, and even if things did, I would be dead long before it ever reaches us, but I still don't like the idea of this big boy closing in. I really have to ask myself, what do I want? Because I do want to go to space, but I also don't want to get caught in a black hole. I'm so indecisive. Coming in at number 9 is S50014+81. I have to say that I'm learning a lot from doing this list. I really knew nothing about black holes before making this video, and while I still know very little, I feel like I know a little bit more. But also making this list is making me feel dumb because I barely know what half the things I'm reading mean. But I kinda know what this thing is. This is a big old black hole that seems to be sitting at the center of a quasar, which is what happens when a black hole is at the center of a bunch of mass, and the force of the black hole pulling in all this junk around it causes the area to be extremely bright because the gravitational energy is being transformed into light energy. Is there any way we can do this on Earth to make clean energy? Scientists, get on that, chop chop please. Well, this mass has made the whole area extremely bright. In fact, the luminosity is 10 to the power of 41 in wattage. So it's safe to say that it would kill you. Coming in number 8 is 3C75. I get why they give black holes numerical names because it makes it easier to keep track of them and makes everyone's job so much simpler, but it would be great to have a job where you just get to name all the black holes. You could just be like, this one's Big John XL Deluxe Edition. He looks blue. Well, 3C75 doesn't have the honor of being named by me, but this beast is still out there making a name for himself. He's hanging out in the Abell cluster that has 400 galaxies around it. That seems a bit excessive. I'm sure 100 would be enough. Also, this guy is blasting through space at at 1200 kilometers per second and flying through plasma. This causes sheets of plasma to blast off in radio jets. This emits radio waves that usually flow from the center of galaxies. I wonder if we could tap into those waves and figure out what's going on inside one of those black holes. Coming at number 7 is 4C plus 37.11. Both these big boys are chilling in the same solar system, and they are about 750 million light years away from Earth. Yeah, you thought it took a long time to fly to Australia. I don't even know if I want to check out what's going on over there. Do they even have oxygen? What am I going to breathe? Well, this galaxy is home to 2 supermassive black holes. Just how big are these 2 orbs that are floating around out there? Well, each one of them is around 15 billion times heavier than our sun. So it's safe to say that if they ever came in contact with our sun, they would beat the out of it. I mean, it wouldn't even be a fair fight. They're not even close to the same weight class. I mean, 20 pounds is supposed to be a big difference, so I couldn't imagine fighting someone who's 15 billion times heavier than you. That's outrageous. Coming in at number 6, we have the unknown. You know, I almost put this at number 1 because that is the spookiest thing I can think about. But I figured I would give you guys some black holes that have actually been found to put in the top spots on this list because that's a little bit more exciting. But the worst black holes I can think about in the universe are the ones that haven't even been found. Like later in this list, you're going to find out what is the largest black hole that has ever been discovered. But what if there's something bigger than that? And what if there's something living inside the black hole? That's not likely. But what if? That's all I'm saying. My mind is running games about what's going on in space, and that is the spookiest thing in town. Coming in at number 5 is Sagittarius A. What is at the middle of a Tootsie Pop? Well, it's some delicious Tootsie Roll candy, of course. So what is at the center of the Milky Way galaxy? Is it some delicious milky nougat? Unfortunately, no. It's a massive black hole that will one day swallow all life in our galaxy. Well, the first part is true. I'm not smart enough to know if the second part will actually happen, but this gigantic supermassive black hole is at the center of our galaxy, and it is 4 million times the weight of our sun. It's not the biggest one out there, but this big boy is definitely trying. Coming in at number 4 is H1821 plus 643. Oh, these names are so fun. How much heavier than our sun do you think this black hole is? Would you guess that it's 200 times bigger? Maybe even 1,000,000 times bigger? Maybe even 100 million times bigger? Well, if you were to guess any of those numbers, you would be way off. The actual size of this bad boy is 30 billion times heavier than our sun. This is what they call a supermassive black hole, and it is strong enough to pull in entire solar systems. It is surrounded by clouds of hydrogen and oxygen, and guess what? It isn't even the biggest black hole on our list. Coming in at number 3 is S4714. This is a supermassive black hole that is tearing through the universe faster than any other black hole that has been discovered. This thing moves at 15,000 miles per second. If it was headed for us, it would zoom through and wipe out the whole planet before we even had a chance to look up. It could come through here faster than Masvidal knocking out Ben Askren. I can't put that clip in this video because of copyright reasons, but just so you know, it was like 2 seconds or something. But on the bright side, a black hole has so much gravity that I'm pretty sure it would rip our atoms apart before we even got a chance to feel anything. Maybe that's how I want to die, getting absorbed into a black hole. Someone in the comments, please let me know if that would be painless or the most painful thing that I've ever felt in my whole life. Coming in at number 2, we have J2157. This has been recorded as the fastest growing black hole because you know what they say about black holes. They're growing boys that need plenty to eat to grow up big and strong. Oh no, wait, that's humans who they say that about. This is just a terrifying pit in the middle of space that is eating everything in sight. This black hole is constantly expanding. J2157 is absorbing approximately the equivalent to 1 solar mass a day. That means it's eating enough mass to match our sun every day. Are we sure that this is a black hole and it isn't Galactus out in space devouring worlds like Joey Chestnut eating up a hot dog like it's nobody's business?
The champion of the world, Joey Chestnut!
And coming at the number 1 spot is the Holmberg black hole. Back in 2019, scientists discovered something very strange going on in the Holmberg galaxy. It seemed that every star and planet was rotating around one massive thing. To have an entire galaxy rotating around one large gravitational mass, it would have to be insanely huge, and this is pretty unusual. So scientists went investigating and they found the largest black hole that has ever been seen. This thing was 40 billion times the weight of our sun, and it's somewhere around 25 times larger than our solar system. Holy crap. I wonder what would happen if you dropped a quarter into it. As I stated before, this thing is so powerful that it's slowly pulling in entire galaxies. Scientists believe that it is impossible for a black hole to get much larger than this unless two black holes of a similar size were to merge into one. Could enough black holes merge together that everything in the universe gets pulled into one place and then all the matter in the universe gets crushed down until the pressure is so high it explodes out in a big bang? Did I just solve the universe?